I never got point fighting, because to me, the whole point of a punch or a kick is to inflict real damage. How do you hurt someone if you're pulling your shots and missing on purpose? Picture this: the sweltering heat of Madison Square Garden, June 24, 1967. Two absolute beasts enter the arena. On one side, Joe Louis, the unbeatable juggernaut of American karate, a Marine-built machine with an undefeated streak that made him a god in the dojo. On the other, Chuck Norris, the stoic underdog, a precision striker with ice in his veins and a burning need to topple the king. What erupted wasn't some polite sparring session. It was a brutal, no-holds-barred war that ripped through the martial arts world like a tornado. The more you train, the sharper you get at handling street chaos, but that doesn't mean you're invincible in every scrap. Norris's shocking takedown of Louis didn't just dethrone a champ, it cracked open the very soul of karate, exposing flaws that demanded evolution. When the smoke cleared, American karate was reborn. Faster, smarter, deadlier. This wasn't just a fight, it was the spark that ignited a revolution. The arena ignites, karate's explosive rise in America. Flash back to the mid-1960s, karate is exploding across America like wildfire. What started as a mysterious Eastern secret, brought home by GIs from Okinawa and Korea, glamorized by Hollywood flicks, and fueled by the hippie era's obsession with Zen and inner peace, is now a full-blown phenomenon. But forget the meditation mats. The real draw is the raw, bone-crunching action. Tournaments aren't tea ceremonies, they're gladiatorial showdowns where reputations are forged in sweat and blood. The US scene is a pressure cooker of full-contact fury, ditching the rigid forms for street-ready brawls. Fighters aren't posing, they're clashing with real stakes, broken noses, bruised egos, and unbreakable bonds. In this chaos, Joe Louis rises like a phoenix, the poster boy for American grit. A battle-hardened Marine with a physique that screams power, he's redefining the game. Meanwhile, Chuck Norris is grinding in the shadows, his quiet intensity building a foundation that could shatter the status quo. As karate schools pop up coast to coast, techniques morph, blending Eastern roots with Western aggression. It's no longer just about tradition, it's American innovation on the mats. Then comes the bombshell, the inaugural All-American Open Karate Championship, hosted by Grandmaster S. Henry Cho at the iconic Madison Square Garden. This isn't some back-alley tourney, it's a spectacle, drawing crowds hungry for history. Whispers spread, could this be the epic clash between Louis's raw dominance and Norris's surgical strikes? One embodies the old-school hammer, the other, a scalpel poised to cut deep. Little did anyone know, this collision would rewrite the rules, forcing karate to adapt or die. And oh yeah, Bruce Lee himself was in the audience, scouting talent that would later spark legendary partnerships. Joe Louis, the unstoppable force of American karate. Joe Louis wasn't born a legend, he forged himself into one. By 1967, he was the undisputed king, a name that echoed through dojos like thunder. Towering at 6 feet and packing over 195 pounds of pure muscle, this ex-Marine looked like he could bench press a Buick. But it was his mindset that made him mythic, a blend of Okinawan discipline and American bravado that turned him into karate's first homegrown superstar. Louis's origin story? Stationed in Okinawa in the early 60s, he dove headfirst into Shorin-ryu under masters like Aizo Shimabuku, soaking up ancient techniques. But he wasn't content with katas and bows, he craved combat. Back stateside, he stormed tournaments, ditching flowery forms for explosive assaults. The style? Blitzkrieg aggression, closing gaps like a predator, unleashing hooks, side kicks, and ridge hands that left opponents reeling. He snagged the 1966 U.S. Nationals, piled up regional crowns, and built an aura of invincibility. What set Louis apart? Charisma on steroids. He trash-talked with swagger, predicted KOs, and embodied the bold spirit of American martial arts. Critics griped about his unrefined edge, but fans worshipped him. He wasn't just winning, he was evolving the sport, injecting speed and power that drew crowds and inspired a generation. Heading into MSG, Louis was the Vegas favorite, expected to steamroll the field and add another notch to his belt. But lurking in the brackets was Chuck Norris, who dissected Lewis's every move, ready to expose the chinks in the armor. The Golden Boy was about to face his toughest test yet. Chuck Norris, the relentless precision machine. In 1967, Chuck Norris wasn't the meme-worthy action star we'd later meme-fay. He was a laser-focused warrior clawing his way to the top, often overlooked amid the hype. While Lewis roared like a lion, Norris struck like a cobra. Silent, calculated, lethal. Forged in the U.S. Air Force in South Korea, where he discovered Tang Soo Do, earning black belts in that, Shido-ryu and Taekwondo. Norris didn't bulldoze with brawn. He dissected with detail, timing strikes to the millisecond, adapting on the fly. By the mid-60s, he was stacking wins in regional rumbles, but without the fanfare. No ego, no spotlight, just results. He pored over film of rivals, drilling weaknesses until they became his weapons. His regimen? Brutal repetition. Thousands of reps on hooks, spins, and counters until they were instinct. Off the mats, Norris built an empire, opening California dojos that drew stars like Steve McQueen, who later became his Hollywood gateway. Fresh off dominating the 1967 Tournament of Champions, where he toppled 7 foes, including a spinning back kick upset over Lewis in their first clash, Norris eyed MSG as his coronation. He'd prepped obsessively for Lewis, spotting overcommits in his charges, gaps in his combos. Advancing through brackets with efficiency, sidestepping rushes, landing clean points, he conserved for the finale. Skeptics dismissed him as too technical, but insiders knew this was a tactician built to dethrone kings. As the crowd buzzed, Norris stepped up, plan locked, ready to turn the tide. The epic showdown at Madison Square Garden. June 24, 1967, Madison Square Garden pulses with energy. Grandmaster S. Henry Cho's inaugural All-American Open isn't just a tourney, it's a watershed for U.S. martial arts, blending karate, taekwondo, and kung fu under bright lights. Thousands pack the seats, a far cry from dingy gyms. Celebs and legends like Bruce Lee watch from the stands, sensing history. The format? Single elimination point sparring, clean, controlled strike score, demanding precision amid chaos. No wild haymakers, but edge-of-your-seat intensity. Lewis storms through, blitzing foes with side kicks and body shots, his aggression a crowd pleaser. But cracks show, rivals are adapting, chipping at his dominance. Norris? A surgeon, footwork baffles speedsters, counters drop points like rain. He's not flashy, he's efficient, eyes on the prize. Lewis. The final arrives, power versus precision, champ versus challenger. The air crackles as they bow. Bruce Lee leans in, noting Norris's poise. The bell dings, and it's on. Lewis lunges, aiming to overwhelm. Norris dances, slipping a ridge hand that tags Lewis, point 1. Tone set, no fear. Lewis presses, landing thunderous body blows, but Norris interrupts flows, timing counters to perfection. The crowd roars as exchanges escalate. Lewis's hooks clash with Norris's back fists and roundhouses. Midway, frustration boils. Lewis overcommits. Norris pivots, unleashing a spinning back kick that grazes clean, gasps echo. Judges scramble, it's tactical warfare. I never got point fighting, because to me, the whole point of a punch or a kick is to inflict real damage. How do you hurt someone if you're pulling your shots and missing on purpose? Imagine the electric buzz in the air, the crowd's roar echoing off the walls of Madison Square Garden on June 24, 1967. Spotlights cut through the haze as 2 martial arts titans step onto the mat, GIs crisp, eyes locked in unyielding focus. In one corner, Joe Louis, the indomitable force, a marine-forged colossus with an undefeated record that struck fear into every competitor. In the other, Chuck Norris, the enigmatic challenger, a master of precision with a quiet fire that belied his explosive potential. What unfolded wasn't a gentle exchange of techniques, it was an all-out savage brawl that shattered expectations and sent shockwaves rippling through the martial arts universe. The more you train, the sharper you get at handling street chaos, but that doesn't mean you're invincible in every scrap. Sometimes, the underdog flips the script. Norris's jaw-dropping upset over Lewis didn't merely crown a new king, It exposed deep cracks in karate's traditional framework, forcing a radical evolution. When the final bell echoed and the dust settled, American karate emerged transformed, leaner, meaner, and infinitely more strategic. This wasn't just a match, it was the detonation that propelled karate into a new era, influencing everything from dojo training to modern MMA. Buckle up as we dive deep into this legendary clash, uncovering untold details, insider anecdotes, and the ripple effects that still echo today. The arena ignites. Karate's meteoric explosion in 1960s America. Rewind to the swinging 60s. America is in the grips of a cultural revolution, and karate is riding the wave like a tsunami. Imported by battle-tested soldiers returning from Okinawa and Korea, glamorized in spy thrillers and James Bond flicks, and amplified by the counterculture's quest for Eastern wisdom and self-mastery, karate wasn't just a hobby, it was a movement. But strip away the philosophical fluff, and what hooked the masses? Pure, unadulterated combat. Tournaments transformed from quiet demonstrations into high-stakes arenas where warriors clashed for glory, testing limits in ways that mirrored the era's rebellious spirit. The U.S. circuit was a wild frontier, full-contact skirmishes that ditched scripted katas for improvised mayhem, with real risks, split lips, cracked ribs, and egos shattered beyond repair. Amid this frenzy, Joe Louis burst forth as the archetype of American audacity, a powerhouse whose every strike embodied the nation's can-do grit. Yet, lurking in the wings was Chuck Norris, honing a style that whispered of innovation, quietly amassing wins that hinted at a seismic shift. As dojos sprouted like mushrooms from New York to California, techniques hybridized, fusing rigid Japanese forms with American athleticism, adding boxing footwork and wrestling grapples for an edge. It was karate, but supercharged, breaking free from ancient constraints. Enter the game changer, Grandmaster S. Henry Cho's groundbreaking All-American Open Karate Championship at the hallowed Madison Square Garden. This wasn't your average gym bout. It was a spectacle under the bright lights, drawing thousands of wide-eyed fans, media buzz, and even a young Bruce Lee in the audience, scouting for talent that would later fuel his own cinematic empire. Rumors swirled. Would Louis's brute dominance collide with Norris's razor-sharp tactics? One stood for the raw power of the establishment, the other, a harbinger of clever, adaptive warfare. Unbeknownst to the roaring crowd, this epic showdown would ignite a firestorm, compelling karate to evolve or fade into obscurity. And with legends like Ed Parker and other pioneers ringside, the stage was set for history to unfold in real time. Joe Louis, the relentless juggernaut who redefined power. Joe Louis didn't just enter the karate world. He conquered it with the force of a hurricane. By 1967, his name was synonymous with victory, a beacon that lit up every tournament poster and dojo wall. Standing tall at 6 feet and sculpted with over 195 pounds of battle-ready muscle, this former Marine looked like he stepped out of a comic book, but his real superpower was a mindset forged in fire. Louis's journey kicked off in Okinawa during his early 60s military stint, where he immersed himself in Shorin-ryu under icons like Aizo Shimabuku and Siyu Oyata, mastering the art's foundational ferocity. But Louis wasn't one to bow to tradition blindly. He craved the crucible of combat, transforming elegant techniques into weapons of mass disruption. Stateside, he stormed the scene like a blitz, eschewing wide stances for aggressive closes, pummeling foes with devastating side kicks, hooks, and ridge-hand strikes that landed like thunderclaps. His resume? A masterclass in dominance, snatching the 1966 U.S. Nationals, sweeping regionals, and maintaining an aura of untouchability that made opponents quiver. What truly elevated him? That magnetic swagger. He dished out interviews with bold predictions, trash-talked with charisma, and embodied the brash confidence of a young America pushing boundaries. Critics muttered about his impure style, blending karate with boxing influences, but fans couldn't get enough. He wasn't merely competing, he was revolutionizing, injecting adrenaline that turned niche events into must-see spectacles. As he strode into MC that fateful day, Louis was the odds-on favorite, poised to dismantle the bracket and etch another chapter in his legend. Little did he know, Chuck Norris had been dissecting his every move, spotting vulnerabilities in his aggressive surges, like overextended lunges and predictable combos, ready to turn the juggernaut's strength into his downfall. The Golden Era's king was about to face a reckoning that would test his mettle like never before. Chuck Norris, the silent storm of surgical precision. Long before the internet memes and action hero stardom, Chuck Norris was a force of calculated calm, grinding through the ranks with a discipline that bordered on obsession. In 1967, he wasn't the household name, he was the overlooked technician, often eclipsed by flashier rivals like Lewis. But underestimate him at your peril. Norris's style was a venomous blend of efficiency and adaptability, striking with the precision of a sniper. His origins trace to a U.S. Air Force posting in South Korea, where Tang Soo Do captivated him, leading to black belts in that art, plus Shito-ryu karate and taekwondo. Norris didn't overpower, he outthought, weaving timing, angles, and counters into a web that ensnared even the mightiest. By mid-decade, regional victories piled up, but without the hype. Norris let his fists do the talking, no bravado needed. He devoured footage of competitors, breaking down habits like a chess grandmaster, then drilled relentlessly, endless reps on spinning back kicks, hook kicks, and back fists until they were extensions of his will. Off-mat, he built a burgeoning empire, launching California dojos that magnetized celebrities. Steve McQueen became a student and lifelong friend, later paving Norris's Hollywood path. But in '67, Norris was laser-focused on proving his mettle. Hot off a stunning win at the Tournament of Champions, where he felled 7 opponents, including a prior upset over Lewis with a spinning back kick that left Jaws on the floor, Norris entered MSG with a blueprint for victory. He'd pinpointed Lewis's flaws. The champ's forward charges left brief windows for counters. His combos had rhythmic gaps ripe for interruption. Slicing through his bracket with minimalist mastery, evading rushes, landing pinpoint strikes, conserving energy like a predator, Norris embodied quiet confidence. Doubters called him too methodical, but those in the know sensed the storm brewing. As the finals loomed, Norris bowed in, strategy etched in his mind, poised to dismantle the myth of invincibility and usher in karate's strategic renaissance. The epic clash at Madison Square Garden, blow-by-blow mayhem. June 24, 1967, Madison Square Garden throbs like a living beast, packed with over 10,000 fans under the glare of spotlights. Grandmaster S. Henry Cho's All-American Open isn't mere competition, it's a melting pot of styles, karate, taekwondo, even early kung fu influences, marking martial arts' mainstream breakthrough. Bruce Lee himself perches in the crowd, eyes sharp, later crediting the event for inspiring his own training evolutions. The rules: point-based, single elimination, clean, controlled hit score, blending ferocity with finesse, no full knockouts but plenty of edge of chaos tension. Lewis bulldozes his path, unleashing signature blitzes. Low side kicks crumple legs, body shots echo like drumbeats, his aggression whipping the crowd into a frenzy. Yet, subtle signs emerge. Opponents are adapting, dodging more, closing the gap on his once unassailable lead. Norris, meanwhile, operates like a ghost. Immaculate footwork baffles aggressors, counters land with surgical snap, energy preserved for the endgame. A masterclass in economy, sidestepping flurries, tagging with ridge hands and roundhouses that draw ooze from the stands. Finals. The mat clears, judges poised, air thick with anticipation. Lewis in black trim GI, Norris in white, power versus poise. They bow, the bell clangs, and hell breaks loose. Lewis surges like a freight train, aiming to overwhelm with a ridge hand opener. Norris slips left, countering with a crisp back fist, point Norris. The tone? Defiant. Lewis presses, landing a thunderous side kick to the ribs that staggers Norris, scoring big, but Norris resets, interrupting Lewis's follow-ups with timed hooks. Mid-round, intensity spikes. Lewis overcommits a combo, Norris spins, unleashing a back kick that grazes Lewis's jaw. Crowd erupts. Gasps ripple as exchanges turn vicious. Lewis's hooks whistle past, Norris's roundhouses clip clean. Judges scribble furiously, it's mental chess at warp speed. Lewis, frustrated, amps the pressure, but Norris pivots inside for close-range punches. Climactic flurry. Lewis lunges with a hook, Norris parries, counters with a punch-hook kick chain that seals the deal. Bell. Scores tallied, Norris by decision. The upset roars through the arena. Lewis, gracious in defeat, shakes hands, but the shift is palpable. Not blood-soaked savagery, but psychological brutality. Norris weathered blows that'd drop mortals, flipping Lewis's aggression into traps. Bruce Lee nods approvingly, little knowing Norris would later star opposite him in Way of the Dragon. Norris's ferocious triumph, dissecting the savage upset. This wasn't polite point sparring. It was a raw, edge-of-your-seat war where Norris's intellect clawed victory from Lewis's jaws. Opening salvos. Lewis's aggressive charges met Norris's evasive genius, early ridge hands drawing first blood for the underdog. As Lewis dialed up the heat, crushing body shots that tested Norris's ribs, Norris retaliated with disguised arsenals. Front leg roundhouses disrupted rhythm, back fists snuck through guards, and that iconic spinning back kick? A near knockout that had fans leaping from seats. The savagery lay in the grind. Norris absorbed punishing connects, his composure unbroken, exploiting millisecond gaps in Lewis's barrages. Lewis pushed rules to the brink, frustration evident in harder tags. Norris stayed icy, turning overextensions into counter opportunities. The finisher? A seamless parry-pivot punch kick that outscored the champ decisively. It laid bare power's pitfalls. In point karate, unchecked aggression invites counters. The crowd's stunned silence exploded into cheers. Lewis, ever the sportsman, conceded with respect, later admitting the loss, sharpened my edge. Dojos nationwide buzzed overnight. Train for timing, not just power. Tournaments adapted, rewarding strategy, birthing a new breed of fighters. The aftershocks, a revolution that reshaped martial arts. Norris's conquest didn't end with the bell. It unleashed a tsunami that forever altered karate's landscape. Immediate fallout. Schools scrapped outdated drills, infusing curricula with Norris-inspired agility, counter drills, and opponent analysis. The myth of unbeatable brawn crumbled. Brains became the ultimate weapon. Lewis, undeterred, channeled the defeat into innovation, pioneering full-contact kickboxing and earning eternal acclaim as its father. Their rivalry? Electric. They clashed 4 times total, Norris winning 3, including a 1967 Internationals rematch where he claimed grand champion. Norris skyrocketed. Dojo chains expanded, celeb clientele like McQueen opened Tinseltown doors, leading to films that globalized martial arts. Bruce Lee, impressed at MSG, later tapped Norris for collaborations, though fate twisted paths. Fan reactions? Feverish. Magazines like Black Belt hailed it as karate's turning point, inspiring hordes of kids to enroll. Even today, MMA stars credit the bout for early hybrid tactics. The shockwaves? A transformed sport, more dynamic, inclusive, and spectator-friendly, paving roads to UFC and beyond. Why this legendary brawl eternally transformed karate? The Norris-Lewis saga wasn't a one-off upset, it was karate's pivotal pivot, shattering traditions and birthing modernity. Dive into the why. Tactical renaissance. Lewis's force-dominated era ended. Norris's victory spotlighted angles, feints, and counters as equalizers. Dojos pivoted to hybrid training, blending karate with taekwondo spins and boxing jabs, crafting versatile warriors that echoed in today's MMA. Sparring reimagined. Smarts trumped size. Post-fight, practices emphasized scouting, adaptive responses, and scenario simulations. Karate evolved from static forms to dynamic duels, fostering tacticians who read foes like books, elevating competitions to chess matches with kicks. Mainstream momentum, MSG's prestige, with Bruce Lee witnessing, proved karate's entertainment value. Media frenzy followed, spawning tournaments, TV spots, and a 70s boom. It validated martial arts as a legit sport, drawing diverse crowds and fueling global popularity. Generational spark. Aspiring fighters idolized Norris's unflappable grit, learning prep and poise over posturing. Lewis's resilience inspired reinvention. Together, they motivated millions, Norris's films like Good Guys Wear Black amplified the message, while Lewis's kickboxing legacy influenced heavyweights like Bill Wallace. The impact? Timeless. Modern karate's athletic blend, mental fortitude, and strategic depth all trace back to that explosive day. Legacy, Norris, Lewis, and the enduring dawn of modern combat. That 1967 MSG masterpiece drew karate's before and after line, catapulting both men to immortality while steering the art toward innovation. Norris became technical mastery's ambassador, his MSG triumph fueling dojo dynasties and a Hollywood odyssey, from sparring Bruce Lee in Way of the Dragon, a role nearly Lewis's, but destiny intervened, to iconic films that mythologized him. He championed focus over flair, his philosophy, adapt or perish, shaping curricula worldwide. Lewis? Far from diminished, he rose phoenix-like, founding American kickboxing and dominating pros, earning Greatest Karate Fighter from Karate Illustrated in 1983. Their four-fight saga, Norris edging 3-1, honed both, blending contrasts. Lewis's aggression versus Norris's patience, power against precision. They didn't just compete, they collaborated in evolution, pushing boundaries that birthed hybrids like MMA. Cited in dojos as the fight that changed everything, it symbolizes progress. Over 50 years later, its echoes fuel every clinch, counter, and comeback in combat sports. Think this Norris-Lewis epic revolutionized Western karate? Share your wildest upset fights or how it inspired you. Drop comments below. If this got your blood pumping, hit like, subscribe for more untold martial arts sagas, share with your dojo crew, and bell up for notifications. What's your take on who wins in a no-rules rematch? Let's debate. Keep honing that edge. See you in the next breakdown. Bless us.